Is it shopping online? Is it shopping at the grocery store? Is it going to see movies? Is it going to Broadway? Going to Central Park? Riding the ferry? Come up with a couple different hobbies that you guys actively pursue right now. Is it playing with your kids? Puzzles with your kids, if you have kids, right? Is it taking your elderly parents out for lunch? What is it? Does everybody have some type of idea what that hobby is? Hopefully. Man, you guys are not a lively bunch. All right, now that you guys have that answer down, we have a 3-letter word that I live by, that I've always lived by since I got into the mortgage business when I was 20 years old, about to be 21, in December of 2007. The one thing that I realized, and especially entering the business at age 20 in December 2007 when the world was collapsing, and it was basically worse than the Great Depression because of how big numbers had gotten and fallen, there's a 3-letter word. Can anybody guess what my 3-letter word is that I am non-negotiable about in my life and business?
Fun.
Winner. Yeah, fun. So, does anybody think this market right now is fun? It's hard, right? Challenging. It's competitive. We've never seen it before. For the first time in the history of the United States, interest rates have doubled and prices are still going up, right? So even now, more than ever, the number one focus that you guys need to have to succeed, to keep going, is to have fun. So the only way you're going to have fun is by doing what you want to do. And that's your hobby. So how can you take your hobby, whatever you wrote down, for those of you that wrote down what your hobby is, and incorporate that into your business for networking, for letting the monkey off your back from a stress standpoint or having no deal standpoint, that allows you to have fun. I'll tell you a quick story before we get into the presentation. So it was 2014, and I was crushing the pavement in New York City. Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens, Manhattan, you name it, all over the place. Bronx, I started in the Bronx, for those that don't know. And Halstead, did anyone ever hear Halstead? It was a large real estate company like Halstead, Douglas Elliman, so on and so forth. Had like a multi-million-dollar a year marketing agreement with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo would basically give them and their developers all the money to build all these condos, and in return, they were their in-house lender. I was with a no-name bank, making a name for myself, doing $30 to $40 million a year over year, from 24, 25, 26, 27. Like, okay. And I was afraid of going to Manhattan because I'm 24 years old. I did business in the Bronx. I can't handle $1 million transaction, even though I was closing them sporadically. But I was like, all right, I'm just going to go into Manhattan. So I started with Harlem, because Harlem's on the top of Manhattan, right? So I would go to this Halstead office probably 2 to 3 times a week, and the lady literally would not let me pass the front desk. I would bring her treats. I was much more charming at 24. She didn't like me, and she made it known, like, listen, don't come in here, don't come in here, don't come in here. And one day she wasn't there, and there was a receptionist there that we kind of took a liking to each other, took her out to lunch, and she invited me to come have like drinks with her real estate friend who was an agent there. So we had drinks, had a good time, whatever, went home, and then I got a text like, hey, our director for our 3 offices, Washington Heights, the Bronx, Riverdale, right, and Harlem, the director, so the guy above the lady that didn't like me for whatever reason, I'm so likable as you guys probably already know, right, just kidding, was like, hey, can you have lunch with our guy tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, sure, perfect, this is awesome. Like, why, like, that sounds too good to be true. So we go and have lunch, and we're sitting there. It's like noon. I'm sitting in Harlem. It was like a Tuesday. He's like, hey, nice to meet you, this and that. Hey, do you want to come play for our softball team? I'm like, well, I never really played softball. Like, I played college football. I played baseball. But, yeah, why not? Why would I turn down this opportunity, right? I've never played softball before in my life. So long story short, I say, okay, not committing, not knowing where it is. He's like, yeah, it's in Queens tonight at 6 o'clock. I'm like, okay, so it's noon.